Hi everyone, today I want to show you my editing process and how I can take a photo from this to this. Now, if you want any specific techniques, they will be in the timestamps below. Let's get started. Here I have a photo from a prom photo shoot I took last spring at the end of the school year 2022. Now the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to center the picture so both my subjects are kind of equally close to the edge here. Obviously I can only center that way from the right side because the subject on the left is pretty close to the edge already. Let's see, and you can do that with the C key. Again, I didn't like exactly how that went, so I may try to give her a little bit more width, and I also like that sunlight. We're gonna try to accentuate that in the future. The next thing I'm gonna do is what I always like to do is create a blank layer, and we're gonna work on the skin tones here, and I can do that by pressing the blank layer button, and then I'm going to press J, and I'm going to bring up the spot healing brush tool, and we can zoom into the subject, and we can work on any imperfections if we just wanna kind of smooth out the skin here. And again, this is all up to the subject's preference. Another big thing I'm going to be showing later on this video is the lighting. And again, both their faces, obviously they're both very beautiful, look great here. And I'm going to Control Z because I didn't like how the spot healing brush did that. And again, you can press Control or minus to make the spot healing brush bigger or smaller if you don't like it. Again, I want to zoom in a little bit more here, work on her forehead a little bit. Make sure, and then we're going to be smoothing out the lighting in another process, so I'm not too worried about that right now, just worried about any little marks I make. And we're going to be shining the teeth too. Again, any marks we want to work on, and anything they ask in post-production that they want to get rid of. And again, I like to do this on a brand new layer because then I have simply the ability to turn it off or turn it on and see what I changed there, okay? So there we go. And that's all we'll do now. Again, some light working out. We're going to be doing some blurring and some smoothing as well. I'm going to press Command 0 to zoom out of the picture. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the lighting. And we can do that by creating dodge and burn layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a group here by pressing the folder button. And I'm going to call it dodge and burn here. And then I'm going to make within this group, I'm going to go to adjustment layer and I'm going to make 2 new curves layers here. And don't worry about doing anything specific. We don't have to worry about the curves graph, which accentuates the darker parts, the lighter parts, and everything in between, depending on how you kind of code the graph. What we're going to do here is I'm going to name one of these curves. I'm going to name it dodge to make it lighter. That's what dodge means. And burning means make it darker. I think of burning as like a burning fire. Usually you're doing that during the night times. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to inverse both of these layers so that they don't show on each layer. Now, to get equal dodging and burning, what I like to do, or what is a common technique, is to simply make sure you've got the dodge layer selected and you want to go to adjustment. You want to go to blending mode, and select screen. And then for burn, you want to go to and select multiply. It's up here. If you notice, your blending modes are categorized into 4 different sections. So the first section is kind of normal. The second section is how to make things darker in a little bit different ways. The third section is how to make things lighter. And then the other 2 sections add are kind of a hodgepodge of selections. Then the other ones are the last 2 are just straight selections. So differences versus the 4 color selection choices. So now that I have dodge and burn here, what we're going to do here is we are going to burn some of the lighter sides to make the skin look uniform, or make the lighting on the skin, as I should say, more uniform. And what I want to do is I want to make sure my burn layer is selected, and then I want to go to my brush tool with the B key. I'm going to take my flow all the way down. Some people like to do 1%, but I'll do 4 or 5 right now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and I'm going to see how this goes. I'm going to try to make it here. If I can't see any changes, I'm going to up my flow here and just check it out. So I kind of like what that's doing right here. And again, just to make sure this is working, I also like to actually, a good check here, my brush has to be white. I can press the D key to default my colors to white and black. Sorry, it's good to show the mistakes, I think, in my video, so I'll leave that in. But now if you can see, as I brush over this, as I illuminate my burn mask, the lighting gets a lot darker. I don't like how dark it's making it, so I'm going to Control Z, and I'm going to make my flow way smaller like I showed in the video. I'm going to make it 5% here. And if I don't like the effect on my burn or dodge layer, one thing you can always do is you can keep on brushing over and over again, and so that will eventually get the darkness of 100%. So if I keep on brushing over and over again, and then let's see, let me turn it off and turn it on, you can see the effect of it. So the effect of turning down the flow is that it's only 5% of the original brush stroke. So for instance, if you have 10% flow, brushing over it 10 times will make it 10 times thicker, and then it will be, a full brush stroke at 100%, if that makes sense. So that's what you get for turning the flow down, is you get a dimmer brush stroke, but then if you want to achieve a thicker brush stroke, you can just brush over it again, so you kind of can see it little by little. And again, that's how Photoshop is nice. You can just make little changes there. And again, I also could dim the opacity if I thought that I had burned anything too dark here. The opacity, again, is right next to the blending mode. And again, let's try to get a little more uniform lighting on the cheeks here. Let's go there. And then the tip of the nose right there also has that. And then good, 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 great. I'm gonna come back to the teeth and the lips later. And now so we can see the before and we can see the after. Okay, and now we're gonna do the same thing here. Again, we are going to brush over these very light parts of the skin where a lot of light is getting to it. And we're just going to make, this is to make the lighting on the subject more uniform. It's also nice. So again, this is slowly but surely working. You can see the shine is slowly going down here. Kind of like it. Again, always can again check my before and check my after. So again, we want to make sure it looks uniform. I'm gonna make my brush a little bit bigger here. And again, it will never go past 100% flow, but every time I darken it, or in this case, slowly do that. And again, I don't like how this forehead region turned out. I may have to increase the flow, or I may have to, Control Z a little bit just to get back my changes. What I may do is I may press X for black, and I may kind of work on this again. So now I'm kind of dimming, I'm dimming the mask again, or I'm bringing the mask backwards by painting it black, because white allows the mask to see through. So the multiply effect, the burn effect takes place. But what I really want is a much lighter effect. So I may take the flow down to 1% here. And again, this may seem slow and tedious if you're watching this video, but this is kind of what you have to get used to if you want to be editing photos, is slow and steady wins the race here. And so I may zoom in again and make sure I just keep on brushing. We'll increase the flow to 30%. Yeah, it's not bad now. We don't want it that bad. I'm gonna mess around with the flow again, 12%. Yeah, it's a little bit better. I don't want it too dark. It just looks unnatural. Okay, and there we go. I like that a little bit more. And then I'm gonna switch to black. I don't like how dark I made the forehead or the region right above the nose here, so I may take that. Let me check my mask here. So that's actually a good point. I don't like how dark the region above the nose is here, so I'm gonna click the dodge layer. I'm gonna make sure my white is my foreground color. I'm gonna set the flow to a very low percentage, 6 is good. And we're gonna lighten up that region. Yeah, I kind of like that. There we go. Control Z that last brush stroke, because I didn't like that. And there we go. And there's one little region right here that we want to make a little bit darker, so let's go to burn here and let's try to darken it a little bit. There we go. And let's see, the right cheek, respective of my subjects, also a little bit too light. Let's try to darken it a little bit. Perfect. I think that looks good now. Okay. And we're going to get the nose. We're trying to make the nose pretty uniform here. And I'm going to increase my flow here to 16%. Okay, great. So another technique we can do if the lighting isn't perfect or just the skin tones aren't adjusting to the lighting you like so much is we also can create another blank layer. That's why I like creating so many layers, is because we all have these independent changes we can then modify. So I'm going to create another blank layer, and we want to put this outside the folder here. You can do that with Command, Shift, and then right square bracket here. And so I'm going to press B for the brush key, and I'm going to then press Option or Alt to get the skin tone that I want to paint over. And then simply I'm going to go to a darker region and then paint in a lighter region on top of where I want it. So let's see if we can get that nice color over here and kind of dim the nose a little bit to work on the lighting. Perfect. And one thing, I think the extra skin tones I painted in are a little bit too harsh. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lower the opacity. So let's lower it a little bit. There we go. And then also I'm going to increase the blending option. So I'm going to double click the layer. This is very important. So double click the layer or bring up the layer style panel. And you just need to worry about this underlying layer panel. And you want to look at these two arrows here. And if you notice, as you slide them, you get less and less color, or you bring it back, you get more color. And so what I want to do is I want to change the blending options. That's what this is doing. And you can do that by Alt or Option and then clicking those two arrows, and they'll split and they'll blend the two colors. They'll blend the darker colors in this case much easier than it used to be harsher. So it creates a gradual blending between the dark colors. So now you can see the before and you can see the after. Okay, so again, dodging and burning allows us to coordinate the colors or kind of create a matching of the tones really. And I really like that. Another thing I want to do here is I want to really accentuate this nice lighting that I have here. I was really lucky in that the sun was setting kind of perfectly, and we have this very nice lighting in the upper right corner as the sun sets. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a new blank layer. We can double click it and name it Sunset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my brush tool. I'm going to press B for my brush tool. Then I'm going to press Option to select a shade of this. And I'm going to get a yellow here. Maybe I'll kind of bring it up here and make it a little bit more saturated. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press plus to make the brush bigger and bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger, bigger. And so much so that it occupies like the top, right corner here. I'm going to make sure that my brush options that I have I have the soft round brush selected. I think I already did, but just make sure. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paint this over here, and I'm going to try to really saturate this upper part here. So I just wanted to make a really nice upper part of the sunset and bring that out a little bit. And maybe if I really wanted to, I could also bring out the tint of the car, but I really wanted that region or that nice sunset to kind of be exaggerated. And what I can do is I can lower the opacity here a little bit. Yeah, so it's not as crazy. So just to bring out kind of the moment or the fact that the sun is so beautiful here. I really like that. And I could also add an adjustment layer, a hue saturation adjustment layer, make it a clipping mask by clicking that button. And I could mess with the saturation here and maybe just saturate it a little bit more. I don't know. And then I think you can optionally also use this layer to change the color anytime you want. But that original color is what we want right there. And yeah, let's do that. So there you go. So we have the before and we have the after there, kind of highlighting the tree. The trees may look a little bit too yellow, but I do think it looks nice here. Now, another thing we have is their dresses. So their dresses are very nice. Obviously, the woman on the left is wearing a very nice blue dress, and the one on the right is wearing a very nice black dress. Another thing we can do is we can highlight our subjects by decreasing the brightness on the outside on everything else that's not the subject and increasing the brightness on the subjects. So what we can do is if we are happy with all of our previous changes, what we can do, and even if we're not, we can go back and change it. What we can do is we can try to merge all these layers together, and we can do that with, I believe, Control Command Shift E. On Mac, you can do that with Command Shift Option E. I'm used to doing this on Windows, so I had to look up the shortcut, to be honest. Now, then we have a merged layer of all our below changes in a new layer, and we can call this, merged layer. We don't have to name every layer as long as you know what you're doing, and it doesn't get too out of hand. Sometimes you can have Photoshop photos with like 90 layers possibly if you're doing a very insane project. But now what we can do is we can press the W key for the quick selection tool. If that doesn't bring it up, make sure you go to the object selection tool and press quick selection tool. You can press Shift W to cycle through the different brushes for a keystroke and click select subject and give it a second. Photoshop usually does a pretty good job at selecting the subjects. We'll see what it comes up with. If not, we can do this the good old manual way. And again, it selected the car here. We're not going to worry about that right now. So we can see, once we have the selection, we can press the mask button and then we can see what it masked in. And so it did select some of the car. What we're going to do here is I'm going to go with the brush tool. I'm going to make sure the flow is again set to 100%. To mask this out, and we're going to mask out the car by again making sure we're painting with black, because mask out is for black, and we're going to make sure that we have the mask selected right here. And when we do that, oh, I had my mode set to different somehow, but make sure your brush mode is set to normal, and then paint out the mask. Again, you usually want to check your brush mode, and you want to check your blending options, and you want to check your brush flow. And so then we're going to paint out everything we don't want to mask out. This is so far what the mask is showing. I'm going to blend it in here because we want also, I can press backslash to show the mask. I'm going to paint in white to show the dress here. And I'm going to make sure her dress is painted in here. And I'm going to make sure the car is painted out. I want the car right here. And we're going to consider that good for now. We've got the subjects. We've got a little bit of difference on the brush here. There we go. And looking pretty good here, okay? Again, we can spend some time and make it perfect, but right now we have both the two subjects masked in. And so one thing we can do now is we can go to our curves layer. We can make it a clipping mask out of it, and we can simply click here and we can mess with the brightness here. As you can see here, this illuminates our subjects pretty well right there. Again, we can see the before and the after, and we can see that it definitely brings back a lightness to our subjects. And what we can also do is we can duplicate this layer here by, I can press Ctrl J here. Then I can go to this layer. I can invert it, and then we can create another curves layer. Curves is used a lot, as you can see here. And we can kind of click this graph and make the background a little bit darker because you can see how dark we can make it sometimes. So we can make it really dark if we want kind of an interesting effect here. Kind of looks a little bit blown out there, so I'm gonna make it toned down like that. So there you go. So we have that, and now we have a little bit darker, again centering on our subjects here. And there we go. We could make the saturation in the dress pop out a little bit. Again, it would be the same thing masking it over. So I'm not gonna show that because it would just be kind of redundant here. But also, once we're done with that, we can merge all the layers again with Command, Control Shift Option E. Have a new layer, and then what we can do for the pista de resistance is that we can go to filter, we can go to convert for smart filters and click OK. If I want to click don't show again, and then we can go to filter again and we can click to camera raw filter, also Shift Command A on Mac. And once that loads, it will then show our basic editing screen that you see in like Adobe Lightroom if you ever use that. And again, we can mess with the editing. We can click auto to see what that does. So auto, you can press auto. It will kind of automatically set some options for you here. And I do like the tinted of the car, so we're gonna keep that there. And then something I always like to mess with here is the sharpening. Again, I like to see what happens when you turn it all the way up versus all the way down. Usually sharpening can accentuate skin pores too much, so we're gonna keep it down here. And then color mixer it's nice to mix with some of the colors here. So one thing here is we have a lot of blues here, so we can see how the blues look when they're lighter or darker, just because there's so much blues and the dress is so nice. Just making it a little bit darker, I think, helps out a little bit. So we're going to add +8 there. Again, usually if you're going overblown, like all the way to the left or right, you usually don't want to do that. You want to do that in editing in Photoshop, not in the camera raw filter at the very end. But there's very little blues except for what we want to highlight, the car and the dress, so it doesn't mess up anything else. And then we can mess with the reds a little bit. And again, the reds, you don't see much changes, but the orange probably won't illuminate the top right here. We're gonna add a little bit there. And then hues, this is the lighter selection of colors, and you can see what colors they're going over here. And you can see that sometimes if you have if a color is kind of pure enough, it will completely change it in the camera filter. So we're not gonna mess with that here though too, just showing an example. And again, the oranges, maybe we'll make it a little bit lighter there on the sunset, so the sunset kind of looks a little bit more perfect, just like it's turning to dusk. And you know what? I like that. I like that really well. And then the last thing people really like to do is add a little bit of grain. It accentuates the detail there. 1 or 2 is nice. And then click OK. And there you go. It may take a second if you're on a laptop or a slower computer. And then there you go. There's our photo. So we have all our changes on different layers, and we can see this is our before and this is our after. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Just like and comment if you really like it. And if you want to reach out for any photo opportunities, let me know. Everything's in the description. See you later.